Is that Hillel?
Yes.
Very nice. Shabbos is good.
Baruch Hashem.
Okay.
Nothing like the community, but all good.
When are you coming back? How long are you there?
Monday morning.
Okay. Okay. Today we're going to start on the bottom of Ayin Hey Amud Aleph. 4 lines up. We're going to start with Tanya. Is that correct, Rabbi Naftali?
That's right.
Okay. So, thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day. So we're learning Shav the Beis Hamikdash immediately. And unfortunately, for my father, I was feeling all over Shabbos.
Man.
Sorry.
Man.
Hell, I need a pencil. Okay. It says, Tanya was taught in a brisa. V'chein Rebbe Elazar Reimer. Rebbe Elazar says, Kuti la yisa kutis. This was a quote from the Mishnah, and quote from the Mishnah? No, this wasn't a quote in the Mishnah. In the Mishnah, we mentioned the word kuti. Eloin asveka shtuki asufi and kuti. Kuti is a suffix. Okay, so who was that opinion in the Mishnah? That was Rebbe Elazar. According to the side, in the text itself, it said Rabbi Eliezer. Okay, whatever the case is, it's apparently there's some sort of doubt regarding a kuti, which the Gemara is going to elaborate on. And so therefore, since kuti, and these are the people that were, after the 10 tribes were exiled from the north, so King Shalmaneser brought in these other people from Kuta and these other countries, so that it doesn't get overrun with the animals. You know, if no one lives there, it becomes like wild. So he brought these people in. The problem is the animals were eating them. Where wild animals were coming, lions were coming. So they said that we don't know how to serve the God of this place. So they brought in some people to teach them. Anyway, those people, they weren't originally Jewish. They were there and they converted. There's some sort of doubt, that arose with them, and Rabbi Elazar is saying that one kuti shouldn't marry another kuti because the doubt could be it's a this, and could be it's a this one could be correct, and this one could be a problem. They shouldn't get married. That's Rabbi Elazar's opinion, is that a doubt and a definite problem should not get married because the doubt could be okay and the definite problem is a problem. So, okay. My time of what's the reason over here? Rav Yosef says, Asuk ger lachar asar adaris. They made a kuti like a convert after 10 generations. Now, after 10 generations, the Tanya was taught in a brisa. Ger ad asar adaris mutam mamzeres. The rule is that a convert is allowed to marry a mamzeres. The mamzeres is not allowed to come into the congregation, but a convert is not considered part of the congregation, is allowed to marry a mamzeres. We can't veilech, but after 10 generations, this is this opinion that holds that a conversion, the convert isn't considered part of the congregation, and therefore is mutter to the mamzeres. Yeah, a convert.
So according to whom?
A mamzer is allowed to marry another mamzeres,
Right?
And is also allowed to marry a convert. But the pasuk says that they can't marry into the congregation a mamzer. The answer is that the convert is not really part of the congregation. Not yet. Okay, well, according to this opinion, it takes 10 generations to become part of the congregation. It's only after 10 generations that it's mamzeres. After 10 generations, that means the convert's child. It's all considered not part of the congregation, according to this opinion. But after that, then you can't marry a mamzeres. Until people forget that the person is a convert. Okay.
What other repercussions are there for not being part of the congregation?
Nothing. Yeah. It's only that your mutter, that And,
So according to this opinion, who could a kuti marry?
I don't know.
It sounds like this is their rabbi's way of wiping out the kuti population.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't put it like that because Rabbi Elazar's opinion was every suffix can't marry anyone. Every
But
suffix.
here the suffix can't even marry the suffix.
Yeah, but that's Rabbi Elazar's opinion even by a shtuki. Anyone that doesn't know who the father is can't marry someone else that doesn't know who the father is. Because maybe this one was okay and that one wasn't. Rabbi Elazar just has a very strict view about the doubts. We had this thing about mamzer vaday v'lei mamzer suffix. We said,
Right.
and Rabbi Elazar obviously doesn't hold of that. Any doubt is actually a problem. So what he's introducing is that the kuti has a similar doubt.
But it's not specific to individuals; it's the whole tribe.
Yeah, you're right. That is the difference. That is the difference. That's correct. So here, Rabbi Yosef is explaining that the issue is that a kuti is considered like someone, like a convert after 10 generations. Now, what happens with a convert after 10 generations? They shouldn't marry a mamzer. Why? Because people will view it. I didn't explain this. People will view it like a regular Jewish man is marrying a mamzeres. It's a descendant of a convert, but no one remembers that it's a convert because its father's father was a convert. So really, it's permissible, but people don't view it like that, so it's going to be a problem. So here, a kuti shouldn't marry another kutis. Doesn't explain what the issue is, but he's saying that it looks like a regular Jewish person is marrying a kutis. Amalei Abaya says midami, but what type of comparison is that? Some Ger Yashan Mamzeres Chadash over there. No one remembers that he's a convert, and they think it's a regular Jew, a regular born Jew, and the Mamzeres everyone knows about. So it looks like a regular Jewish person is marrying a mamzeres, which that's a prohibition. Amri Bar Yisrael, who the kanas mamzeres. But here they're both the same kuti and kutis. So how can you create a problem that one of them is yes and one of them is no? They're exactly the same.
Rabbi Abaya, like compare that a mamzer and a shtuki is pretty much on the same level.
Well, we were saying throughout the Mishnayos that a mamzer and a shtuki were allowed to marry each other. Said they can marry each other, right?
Yeah.
Remember that?
It seems like a shtuki would be more common.
Right. But the Mishnah said, "Mamzere, Gere, v'charure, mamzere, nesini, shtuki, v'asufi, kulam, matam, lavaz, abazad." They could all get married. That was the Mishnah. Rabbi Elazar's opinion was stricter than that. So it's really Rabbi Elazar that has a strict view. Well, Rav Dimi was a traveler, and Rav Dimi comes from Eretz Yisrael. Guess Rav Dimi Amar. Rabbi Elazar Savala Rabbi Shmuel says it's going to go like this. He holds like Rabbi Elazar holds like Rabbi Shmuel. He didn't say what Rabbi Shmuel says, yeah. And Rabbi Shmuel Savala Rabbi Kiva, and Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Kiva. And Rabbi Kiva we've had a bunch of times, but we'll see now one more time what he holds. Rabbi Elazar Savala Rabbi Shmuel. What does Rabbi Elazar hold? He holds like Rabbi Shmuel. Damar Kuti Geri Arayasem. Rabbi Shmuel says that Kutim are not sincere converts. They only converted because the lions were eating them. Remember the story? They were in the north and the lions were coming, so they converted, but they weren't really sincere. So they're not considered Jewish. So what's going to happen? What's going to happen is like this. They're going to marry it's possible that a kuti girl married a Jewish man. It's possible that a Jewish man married a kuti girl. Now, what happens when a non-Jewish man marries a Jewish girl? So the child is Jewish, right? Comes along Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel Savala Rabbi Akiva Damar Ovid Kecham Ve'Eved Abal Bas Yisrael Avlad Mamzer. And Rabbi Akiva's opinion is that if a non-Jew marries a Jewess, the child is a mamzer. So now we've introduced mamzerim into the Kuti population, and that's where we're saying that one Kuti shouldn't marry another Kuti because maybe one of them is not really a mamzer, and one of them is a mamzer. Now, there's a question on this. The question is that, one second, how do you have a Kuti there that's not a mamzer? Because either he's not Jewish or he's so you can either say that the issue over here is a Jew marrying a non-Jew, a Kuti shouldn't marry a Kutis, or you can say that there could have been someone that a Jewish person. It is possible that a regular Jewish person married another Jewish person. It is possible, right? It's not every single marriage has to be a Kuti with a Kutis or a Kuti with a Jew or something like that. So it could be that a regular kosher Jewish child is marrying a mamzer. So therefore, a kuti could have been a regular kosher child, and it could be a mamzer. So that's what. Now, what's the problem? How did it become a mamzer? It became a mamzer because we hold like Rabbi Akiva that holds that a non-Jew with the Jew is a mamzer. Non-Jew with the Jewess, which is not the accepted view, but that's the. Why does he hold that? Because he holds that a mamzer is from any negative prohibited, any negative prohibition in marriage. So if the Torah says you can't get married, the child is a mamzer automatically. It's not only from adulterous, relationship. Okay. The Gemara asks, 1 second. Does Omi Savar La Rabbi Yishmael Rabbi Akiva? Does Rabbi Yishmael really hold like Rabbi Akiva that says that every negative prohibition, the offspring of that is going to be a mamzer? V'amar Rabbi Yochanan Mishum Rabbi Yishmael. Rabbi Yochanan says the name Rabbi Yishmael, Minai and Levit Kacham Ve'Eved Shabala Kehenes Valavia Val Bas Yisrael Shepaslua. Let's say a non-Jew lives with a Kehenes or a Levia or a Bas Yisrael. Any type of the three families, Kayan, Levi, Israel. This is a non-Jew that lives with a Jewish girl. How do we know that the Jewish girl is now prohibited from ever eating truma, even if her father is a Kohen? She becomes like invalid from marrying a Kohen as well. So Shenemar, it says a Bas Kohen Tisi Almana Grusha V'Zera Einla. It says that a Bas Kohen, that if she was married, and then she was married to Israel, and then she becomes widowed or divorced, so she goes back to her father's house. If she doesn't have children, she's allowed to eat truma. Now that means mish yesh le'almanas v'gerushin. That's only a woman that had a union that is possible to have widowhood and divorcehood. However, that excludes if she would have been in a relationship or that doesn't have widowhood or divorcehood, which means that it was with a non-Jew. Okay, so what happens with a union with a non-Jew with a Jewish girl? She becomes puzzled from kuna. Now, v'isal kadaitach savalak Rabbi Akiva, and if it would enter your mind that Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva, Rabbi Shmuel was the one that just said this thing about that a Jewish girl cannot marry a Kohen if she's with a non-Jew. So if she holds like Rabbi Akiva, the mamzer havi. If the child is a mamzer, nifsal bebiyasim ibai, you have to tell me that she becomes invalid. The child, it's much worse than that. It's not just she can't eat truma. The child becomes a mamzer.
How is it? How could she be divorced after marrying this Gentile?
She can't.
Not a marriage.
She can't. That's the point. When does a Kohen, a daughter of a Kohen, Kohenes, after a divorce, return to her father and eat truma? That's only if she was married and divorced. But if she was with someone that there is no marriage and divorce, then she doesn't return to her father to eat truma. That was the way we got that. Since there was no divorce, so because it wasn't considered a real marriage, so she loses that ability to eat truma. So the Gemara is asking, 1 second, why do you even have to tell me that? If you hold like Rabbi Akiva, then the child is a mamzer, and we're taking it for granted that the woman is for sure puzzle. If that union creates a mamzer, then the woman is for sure puzzle. If It's much worse than just she can't eat truma. The child becomes a mamzer. So obviously Rabbi Shmuel doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva. We were trying to figure out why a kuti can't marry a kutis, and the only way we were able to explain that was to say that a non-Jew with the Jew was a mamzer. And we were saying that Rabbi Shmuel's view was that the kutim are not real converts. And then we threw into that Rabbi Akiva's view that holds that a non-Jew with the Jew is a mamzer. Problem is, we can't have Rabbi Shmuel holding like Rabbi Akiva because Rabbi Shmuel clearly doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara says, well, we can still fix this because El Rabbi Lazar savalak Rabbi Shmuel, Damakuti Ge'ares, savalak Rabbi Akiva. I don't need. Funny that the Gemara even set that up in the first place. I don't need Rabbi Lazar to hold like Rabbi Shmuel, and then Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva. I can have Rabbi Lazar holding like Rabbi Shmuel, and Rabbi Lazar holds like Rabbi Akiva. Not that Rabbi Shmuel holds like Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Lazar has these two views, and he holds right. Even if Rabbi Lazar held like Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Shmuel held like Rabbi Akiva, we could have said he holds like Rabbi Shmuel in one thing, and he doesn't hold like Rabbi Shmuel in another thing. Could have right. And that's not limiting. The main point is that Rabbi Lazar holds like Rabbi Shmuel and Rabbi Akiva. The Amar Kuti Geri Arayas, he holds like Rabbi Shmuel that says the Kutim are not real converts. And he also holds like Rabbi Akiva that says that creates a problem because if it's not a real convert, that means it's a non-Jewish man together with a Jewish girl, that creates a mamzer, and therefore we don't know. It's all mixed up in the whole population of Kutim. We don't know who's accepted, who's not. They can't get married. Yeah. Did you ever read Naftali? Did you ever read Passion for Truth? Passion for Truth was Abram Joshua Heschel's book about Kutsk.
About what?
Kutsk, about the Kutzker.
Uh-huh.
And he has two types of books, Heschel, but this is one of his like very poetic books. I think he wrote it in Yiddish first. It was called Kutsk. But what he does is he compares the Kutzker to Kierkegaard, the philosopher.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, in the air, it's very interesting. But one of the things he says is that this is lahavdil, not to compare anything here. But he says Kierkegaard felt that the Christians were not supposed to get married. None of them, not the priests, not the Catholics, none of them should get married. He says, well, you're going to ask what's going to be with the future. He says that the religion's not about the future; it's about the present. So I'm talking about like what's going to be with the Kutim.
Yeah, the priests and nuns don't marry.
Yeah.
The view like intimacy is like beneath them.
Right.
And apparently that attribute is given to like mankind just because they're going to do it anyway. They're going to do it later anyway, so might as well have that married.
So, but they, yeah.
But my parents actually knew a like she had Egyptian parents, and she believed in the rings, or not the whole. I don't know. That's a good right? Samaritan?
Yeah, the Kutim are the Samaritans. Yeah, Jonathan is saying that that his parents knew a Kuti, a Samaritan. They believe in the written Torah. See, officially, that has nothing to do with Kutim. That would be like a Tzeduki. A Tzeduki, but we don't have like Tzeduki nowadays.
Well, we have Samaritans. They're alive and well.
Samaritans.
Yeah, we have them. They're around.
Somehow they picked up some of Tzeduki things. I mean, that not necessarily does Samaritan have to be only believe in the written Torah, not in the oral tradition. That's like whatever. That's a different influence.
By the way, I read from a respectable historian that the Kutim were correct. After they converted, the plague of lions stopped. It worked. That's what he said. Who knows?
Lions. Okay.
But the Kutim wouldn't listen to the rabbis anyway, right? They had their own rules and.
Yeah, apparently they had their own rules, but I don't know if it's like specifically that Tersha B'Ksav. Yeah, this not. I mean, I'm not sure if it's like perfectly like that. you know.
I mean, they're not gonna care if Rabbi Elazar says that they shouldn't marry each other.
Oh yeah, I hear you. I hear you. Interesting. I hear. Yeah. So what you're saying is that like we're making rules for people that it's not relevant.
I wonder if they have shavuos on Sunday.
It's relevant. You can't be in their chuppah. You can't make Kiddushin. It's very relevant.
I hear. Good point. Yeah. Okay. So Misavala Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Akiva. Now we challenge this. Does Rabbi Elazar really hold the Rabbi Akiva? Rabbi Akiva again, so he's the one that held that any prohibited relationship to child is a mamzer. So does Rabbi Elazar really hold like that? But Rabbi Elazar says, we have a clear statement from Rabbi Elazar. If you remember the first approximately 15 blot of Yevamis, there was an underlying problem because there was a machlekes between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel. If what happened is like this: if one brother, let's say for example, one brother married his niece, okay, and then he passed away. The husband, brother. Right. So now who has to do yibum? One of his brothers. What? Let's say if it's the father, then the father can't do yibum on his daughter, right? He can't marry his daughter. Let's say there was a second wife. This brother was married to his niece plus another woman. Okay, so Beis Hillel held that you don't have to do. The father doesn't do yibum on the daughter, of course. He also doesn't have to do yibum on that other wife. Totally exempt. Beis Shammai said no, that only the erva was pater, but not the tsaras erva, not the co-wife. Co-wife still had the would come out. This is like the problem at the beginning of Yevamis. What would come out is that if the wife, if the tzara, right, not the daughter's for sure exempt, but if the other wife goes and marries someone else, so that would be a prohibited marriage according to Beis Shammai, and according to Beis Hillel it wasn't. And we had a question: would Beis Shammai marry Beis Hillel for women? Because it could be that it's going to divide the whole congregation. Now, if we did a yibum according to Beis Hillel, and I'm sorry, if Beis Shammai did the yibum, then that would be a problem, right? They would do yibum on the tzara. That would be marrying his brother's wife in a place where it wasn't a mitzvah. That would be a problem. But if it was just the woman went and she married without yibum, the opposite, according to Beis Hillel, she married without yibum, what would be over there? So anyway, Rabbi Elazar says, even though there's a machlekes about this regarding the tzaras, but they agree that she'ein mamzer shel mishi surya iser ever vanishkaris. If the second wife goes and marries someone else, that there's no mamzeris from them. According to Rabbi Akiva, there would be, because that's a negative prohibition. Leisia eisha samesa chutza leish zar. The wife of the deceased should not go and marry someone else. That would be a negative prohibition. Rabbi Akiva says there's a mamzer. Rabbi Elazar says that there's no mamzer from there, which means Rabbi Elazar doesn't hold of Rabbi Akiva's strict view. So what are you telling me that the kutim are mamzerim because maybe there's a non-Jew in there? And I'm mamzerim. He doesn't hold of Rabbi Akiva. So all of this was an approach that was brought to us by Rav Dimi, and as is common in the Gemara, is that Rav Dimi's teachings get questioned, and then Ravin shows up, and Ravin tells us a different explanation. Ravin comes and he says in the name of Rabbi Chia bar Abba, who's a great student of Rabbi Yochanan, he says in the name of his teacher Rabbi Yochanan, some say it was Rabbi bar Zav, the name of Rabbi Chanina, who was Rabbi Yochanan's teacher. Rabbi Yaakov Baridi, Rabbi Shua ben Levi, goes back to Rabbi Shua ben Levi. Rabbi Shua ben Levi was around the same time as Rabbi Chanina. No, Rabbi Levi was around the time of Rabbi Chanina. This would be a little bit younger. It says Shalish Machlekes Bedavar. There's three opinions here. Rabbi Shmuel Savar Kutageira Rayasem Bekainim Shnit Bem Kainim Psulam Hayosh. Remember Vyasm Kaine Bamet. Remember we said that the people came to teach them, brought people to teach them. It says over there in those verses, it says that they made from some of the people Mikatsaisam Kayane Bamis. The priests for it says that they were the worshiping Kayane Bamis. It says that they were the priests for the altars. Okay, now the Kayanim that were mixed in of them were Kayanim Psulim. How do we get that they're Psulim? In other words, the people that were there were invalid. And that's not because it was a non-Jew that married a Jewish convert or something and then became mamzerim. Not because, like Rav Dimi said, there actually were Jewish people there that were psulim, that were mamzerim. And he's learning from the verse miktsaisam, that miktsaisam means something that's puzzle. Kites, it's like a thorn, I guess that means puzzle. Amar Rabba Bar Bechana Rabbi Yechanan menakaitim shabam mishum hachi paslunu. And Rabbi Bar Chana says that's from the kaitim shabam, the thorns of the people, and that's why that's why the kutim were invalid, because there were mamzerim, actually Jewish people that were mamzerim that were mixed in. Rabbi Kiva Sava, Rabbi Kiva holds kutigeri yamasim, that the kutim were true converts. The kainim shnitrim kainim ksherim hayu, and the kainim that were there were actually kosher. Rabbi Bar Bechana says the name of Rabbi Yechanan min habechirim shabam. Another Rashi. Okay, they're from the edge of the people. It means the upper edge, the upper part, not the lower part. So then, if that's the case, so why were they prohibited to marry? According to Rabbi Akiva, this would be according to Rabbi Lazar. The reason is because they would do yibam exactly. It's not exactly the opposite, because we do yibam. We do yibam if there's a betrothal and the husband dies. There's already a reason for yibam, even though there was never a marriage yet. But just the betrothal, that's enough for yibam. If they're married and the husband dies, but there were no children, we also do yibam. But by the kutim, they only did yibam if there's a betrothal and the husband died. But if there's a marriage, they didn't do yibam. So where'd they get this from? My dashi, where'd they get this from? It says Leisia ish zamesa chutza lishzar. The wife of the meis hachutza. Well, you could read it like this. The Eishes HaMeis, I think the way of reading it is the wife of the deceased should not go outside to a stranger. Where the chutza would be talking about what she should not do. She shouldn't marry a stranger, she should do yibam. They learned it as Leisia Eish HaMeis hachutza le'ishzar. The wife of the deceased that was never really married should not marry the stranger. Hach the yasvachutza he le'sia le'ishzar. Aval hach the le'yasvachutza. But the wife, it depends where you put the comma, right? What was that t-shirt? It says, let's eat, kids. Commas save lives. So but the one that was not outside, that means it was actually married, she is allowed to get married to someone else without doing yibam. Okay, so and Rabbi Kiva Tamei, and we have to throw in Rabbi Kiva's own opinion that he holds that's a prohibition, and that would be a mamzer. Any negative prohibition, according to Rabbi Kiva, the child is a mamzer. The Yeshayimrim, those that say L'fishem Bekim B'Tukei Mitzvahs. This is back to Rabbi Lazar's view, that they weren't careful with the mitzvahs. Okay, now what do you mean? they weren't careful with the details of the mitzvahs. Man yeshemrim, who is the yeshemrim? Rabbi Idi Baravin, Rabbi Eliezer, which I think what it means to say is Rabbi Eliezer, which we've been quoting. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Matzahs kuti muteres vanim yetzibay dechavas bepesach. The first opinion of this brisa holds that if the kuti makes matzah, you're allowed to eat it, and you actually fulfill the mitzvah, even though the matzahs that you use for the seder is supposed to be matzahs mitzvah. It's supposed to be l'shem mitzvah. They announce l'shem matzahs mitzvah, l'shem matzahs mitzvah. While the baking has made l'shma for the sake of the mitzvah. So, and you can assume that the kuti actually did it for the sake of the mitzvah. You can. It's first of all, it's not chametz, and also it's made l'shma. Rabbi Eliezer says you can't. If Yishem became b'dikdukim mitzvahs, because they're not careful with the mitzvahs, which would mean that it's a. Does it mean that it's chametz as well? Probably chametz as well.
Does a shofet need to have that same kavanah?
No. No, he doesn't have to shecht with kavana, but he does say a bracha before he does shchita. That doesn't mean if he didn't say a bracha, it's not kosher. There's a whole discussion at the beginning of Chulin if a kuti's shchita is kosher. Similar discussion. Does it say over here? Yeah, it says Chulin Daf Dalet on the side. Anyway, Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, "Kol mitzvah shechzik b'kutim harbi medak yismi Yisrael." Reb Shimon ben Gamliel holds that if the kutim accepted this mitzvah, they do it even better than the Jewish people do it. They're even more strict. The extra strict. What's our issue over here? We are saying that they can't get married. What is Rabbi Elazar's view? So we come up with this problem. Who's saying this? This is coming from Ravin. Ravin saying is they're not careful with the laws of marriage and divorce, which is exactly what our issue is with mamzeris. Someone gets married and doesn't get divorced properly, and they marry someone else, and there was no divorce there, there's a mamzer. So because they don't have the rules of divorce, they're not careful with it, and the rules of marriage, like who can get married and all of that. So therefore, we have mamzeris issues. And because of those mamzeris issues, then they can't marry. There was I was reading this in the there's a book about Rav Avadia. It's called Maran or something. Maran. Big fat book, excellent book. But again, it was all this chuvas and everything was put into like a narrative, like as a story. And it has this, but in there was something about the Radbaz. It was something about how he treated the Ethiopian people that came, based on a Radvaz, how the Radvaz treated the Kutim. And the Radvaz was the rabbi in Egypt, and he was also, Rav Avadia was a rabbi in Egypt as well for 10 years, something like that. Anyway.
When was he?
It passed away a few years ago.
Yeah. Oh, his father was also.
I'm not sure. Yeah, but you could see videos of him. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so there is a Radvaz about this, about the marriage and divorce of the. I think what I'm remembering is that the Radvaz was saying that their marriages weren't even marriages. They didn't do the marriage correctly, and therefore you didn't have to worry about mamzerim amongst the. It wasn't the Kutima, but there was a Karaite community in Egypt. It was Karaites. That was a Karaite community in Egypt, not Kutim. Yeah. Okay. The Radvaz was 400 years ago, but the Rav Avadia was using a Radvaz to explain the situation. The Karaites are the ones that don't accept the oral Torah. The Kuti are the Samaritans.
And they came from Babel way back.
Who the Kutim?
Yeah.
They came from this land called Kuta. could be near Bethel or something like that. Okay. Amar Rav Nachman, Amar Rav Abu, we have another interpretation. So basically, to summarize, we had Rav Yosef's interpretation. That was that they're considered like a convert that we forgot in the 10 generations, that whole story. But Rav Dimi's interpretation, we are, they may have married, they weren't real converts, and they may a non-Jew married a Jew. We had Ravin's interpretation, they weren't careful with marriage and divorce. And so they're mamzerim, all to explain Rabbi Lazar, they're surprised. And now we have Rab Nachman. Rab Nachman, Amar Rab Baravua, mamzer me'achesem mamzer me'shesach nesar rabem. That, look, it was just a story that there was a mamzer, that someone that married his sister, and there was another person that married his sister-in-law that got mixed into the family, to the tribe of Kutim, and because of that, we don't know who's who, and that's it is. Well, the Gemara says, those are not two different types of mamzerim. Both of them are chayvi krisis. Sister-in-law and sister both have the same punishment. And why do you have to say both of those examples? Gemara says, well, he said it because Ma'aser Shahaya, Kachaya. That was the story. He said it because that was the story. Okay. Rava says, Eved v'shivcha nesaru behem. Isura mishum mai mishum shivcha. What's the problem with an Eved and a shivcha? There's only the whole problem would only be if a shivcha was in there, and a shivcha, what's the issue with the shivcha? The child is an Eved. Maidservant. The child would be a slave. And so that's why they shouldn't marry in, because it would be a slave together with a Jewish person. So it says nisnichada, you don't need Eved and shivcha. If an Eved marries if a slave marries a Jewish girl, the child is a regular Jew. It's only if it's a Jew marries a slave that the child is a slave, a slave woman, that the child is a slave. So it says, oh, same story, Ma'aser Shayach Kachaya, that was the story, and that's what it is. So that's why he said that. Don't be medayek that he's teaching you two separate halachas there. It's not two separate halachas. It's one halacha. That's why he say it with two cases, because that was the story. Okay. The next Mishnah. Turn the page on the Koran. Yeah, the next Mishnah. If you have a Koran, there's a chart on if you turn the page. You have I'm sure the article has charts also. Yeah, look, turn the page. See if you have charts there. Page or two. You got it, because it's a confusing. Okay, your money back. Okay, the chart's going to look something like this. Yeah, and what's in the chart is it's a family chart. What we're looking at is how many generations back you have to go to check lineage. If everything's okay with the parents, what about the grandparents? What about the great grandparents? Like, how far back do you have to go to say, okay, we checked it out? Okay, so it goes like this. Anaisi isha kehenes. Complications about who's all this. Let's keep it simple. Someone wants to marry a Kohen, let's say, wants to marry a Kohenes, a daughter of a Kohen. And he has to find out if she's worthy, if she's eligible to marry a Kohen. So he has to look into the problem. What's the problem? Could be there's a chalal amongst the in the family, and the chalala is a problem. So we got to go back and see everyone. Now, once we're doing this, we're also going to throw in that there's a problem, possibly a problem on mamzeros as well. But the basis of it would have been because we're looking for chalalim, and then it extends. So we're calling her a kehenes, but really it could be even worse. Okay. So it could be it's a real problem, because of a halala. Well, tzarich live the kachra arbei mais shehin shmeina. You have to examine 4 mothers, which is really 8 mothers. Now, the reason why 4 turns into 8 is because 4 on her mother's side and 4 on her father's side, right? Okay. Who are the 4 on her mother's side? So it's Ima. You have to examine her mother, see if if there's any problem with her. The Aim Ima and her maternal grandmother, right? Her mother's mother. the aim avi ima. And we also have to, this is still on the mother's side. So now we're looking at her mother's father's mother. The aim, the mother of Avi Ima. Right? Her mother's grandmother, her mother's paternal grandmother, and the Ima, and her mother's paternal great grandmother. Now we have to do Avi Ima, Ima, yeah. Okay, now we go to the father. Okay, safe line. The aim of Viha. Now we go to the father. We do her mother, the father, her paternal grandmother, the Ima, and her paternal great grandmother. And now we do the aim Avi Avia Ima, and her paternal grandfather's mother, and his mother, and her mother. So it's basically on there's four side. There's two parents give us four grandparents. Is that correct? Four parents. Yeah. Two parents give us four grandparents. Now, each of those you take two from each one of those sides. Well, it's four. It becomes 8. Yeah. Okay, that's what we have to examine. You have to go back.
We're only concerned, not necessarily just with the maternal or the mother in this. You're also looking at the father side too.
We're not looking at the fathers.
No.
You'll see in a moment why. The Gemara is going to discuss what happened to the fathers. We'll see. It's not for any good reason. You'll see. It's not because it's any degrading of the women or something. There's nothing to do with that. You'll see. It's not nothing that the feminists could jump on and attack. Levi Yevi Israelis. Let's say if it's not a Kohen, he wants to marry from the family of Levium and Yisraelim. Now you're not looking for Chalalim over here. You're probably just looking for Mamzerim. So Meisifan Alei Maidachas. You have to add one more to each one. So what would be if you have 8? You have to have one more generation up. How much would that be? There's four. So that wouldn't be 16. It would be 12, because you take one more from each of the. You have 8 because of 4 columns, 2 from each. So you'd add a third one. It'd be 3 times 4 would be 12. Actually, in the Gemara, there's going to be an opinion that says 8. That says that you added that it's 16, and the Gemara is going to say, where do you get that? Where do you get that from? And it's going to say, when it said oid achas, the Gemara is going to translate to mean another pair, means an extra 8, and which would mean 16. Yeah. Okay. Second.
That's assuming.
Okay. So. When you start to look into these people, if you find someone that was serving at the on the temple, so then you don't have to look anymore. Which would mean the women, of course, were not serving on the temple, but if one of the children served a child, so then obviously the mother was acceptable. They already examined that. So it's already clarified. Even if it wasn't in the altar. But even if they were standing where the Levium would sing, it's called a duchan, it was a platform, they would sing. That also means that the lineage is good. You didn't have to examine from this in the Sanhedrin. Anyone that sat in the Sanhedrin means that they were acceptable. There was no blemish in their lineage. If the parents, any of the parents were sheitre, means like judges of the people, so then that's also acceptable. We know that the lineage is good. Gabe tzedakah or a gabe tzedakah. All of those is masin lakuna that can marry. Gabe tzedakah means a tzedakah collector. Can marry kainim. We'll see why. You don't have to do any research into the lineage. Rabbi Yossi says, "Af mishu chasam aid be'erkei hayishana shel tzipori." Anyone that signed on a witness on the old registry in Tzipori, so that's also acceptable because they would only accept over there someone that had proper lineage. Rabbi Chanina ben Antigna said, "Af mishay muchtav b'astratya shel melach." Rabbi Chanina ben Antignas, he says anyone that was taken into the army. How do they translate astratya? Army listing. Army listing. Okay. We'll see in a moment. We'll see the Gemara. What's that referring to? But apparently they would only take in people that were that had a proper lineage, which is exactly the opposite of the army today. Right? Who was telling me? A lot of people that are in the army are they're running away from something. The problem there, the home issues they run. It's just like a haven for them.
They try not get enlisted.
No, but people that actually go volunteer to enlist, sometimes they're like there's something going on in the U.S. Army.
The French Foreign Legion. People from all over the world who were at the place they joined that.
I think it's also a path to citizenship.
What is that?
I think it's a path to citizenship also for people that are not American. They can become American.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. So over here, but in this time, they would only take someone with proper lineage, but it looked like everything was at a different status being in the army than. Okay. Gemara asks, Maishna b'nashi batkina and Maishna b'gavri leibadki. What's going on over here? Why are we examining the women and the men? We're not looking into their lineage. It's the same problems come from a father would come from the mother. If there's any mamzerus issue or something that gets passed down to the father as well. Gemara answers, look at this answer. Nashi when women, when they argue with each other and they fight and they call each other names, they shout at each other about promiscuous behavior. That's how they insult each other. If there was mamzerus in there, we wouldn't know about the background lineage. We only know about their own misbehavior. That's not the way they insult each other. I don't want to use the words that they say, but they have names for. Okay, and
It's true even in like English vernacular.
yeah, that's the names that they use. So no one would know of anything about lineage. They don't call each other mamzerim. In the yeshiva, it's the Bachram fight. So you amaretz, you ignoramus, but they don't go back to like those other things. So okay. However, Gavri, when it comes to men, the chiminsu b'hadiyadadi, when they argue with each other, they argue about lineage. If there was something that would have come up, that there's any sort of doubt, islay kala, then people know about it already. Because when the men argued, they shouted at each other all the problems with the lineage that they have. So people, okay. So you don't have to do that type of research because everyone would know about it.
So women don't argue about lineage, but men do.
The men, when they argue, they use lineage as their insults. So therefore, you don't have to examine the men going back because all of that stuff is very clear. It's only the lineage of the women that's been hidden. Okay. And what was the reason for that?
Just whatever you joke away here, you must
Right. What did that mean, Reb Naftali? He told someone your mother wears army boots. It was supposed to be an insult.
That was when gumballs cost 5 cents.
Okay. So The Gemara asks, "V'ihi nami tivdik bei b'didei." Why doesn't she have to look at his mother's? We're only saying he is looking at her mother, grandmother, and all of that, great grandmother. Why doesn't she have to look into his? Rav. This is a proof for Rav. What's going to be the problem? We're ignoring now that the mamzerus issue. But let's say we're only concerned about a chalal. What we're saying now is that she, even if the husband is a chalal, a woman is allowed to a woman is allowed to marry a chalal, even if she's the daughter of a kohen. She's allowed to marry a chalal. Okay, so that's why she doesn't have to look into his, but he has to look into hers. Maybe she's a chalal. Rav Ada bar Ava Tani Daladi Mayis Shem Misrei. Rav Ada bar Ava had a brisa. Said 4 mothers going back, 4 mothers, which is really 12. So that means there's an extra 1 generation. But in the brisa, there was 4 mothers, which is really 16, which means you use 4 generations. We can understand Rav Ada bar Ava. Bas Yisrael. He was talking about the case of the daughter of Levi and the daughter of Israelite. That was the 3rd generation. So 3 times 4 is going to be 12. But let's say that our Mishnah argues on that brisa. It says loy, that doesn't argue. My oidachas, what does the Mishnah mean when it says you add 1? It means zugachas, it means you add 1 pair. 1 pair will make 16. So it fits with the brisa. Amar Rav Yudah, Amar Rav. Rav Yudah says the name of Rav. That's the common phrase. Zu Divrei Reb Meir. Our Mishnah that says you have to examine these generations, that's the opinion of Reb Meir. The sages say, Kol mishpachis becheskas ksheres einaimdes, that every family is assumed to be kosher. And that looks like it's the halacha. Here we don't have to do these examinations. Yeah, when you make like shidduch reference calls, you don't have to ask, was the grandmother halal, divorced of something? You don't do mamzerus checks. I mean, you check, where they went to yeshiva, where they went to school, and basic stuff. Aini.
Well, I know, like just before the chuppah,
Oh yeah, the Rav has to do that. The Rav has to, but the Rav asks for a ksuba. The parents ksuba, and if the parents were married, then we assume that the Rav beforehand had examined that, and so each generation passes to the next. Okay, so the Gemara says, "Aini, is that really so that the Chachamim argue on this whole Mishnah and they say you don't have to do any research?" Amar Rab Chama bar Guria, Amar Rav. Rab Chama bar Guria says the name of Rav. You said before Rab Yehuda in the name of Rav. Now it's Rab Chama bar Guria in the name of Mishnah Seinu Kishkar Lavir. Our Mishnah, where you have to do research, is talking about when there was a problem. And now you're telling me that our Mishnah is a machlekes Reb Meir and the Chachamim. The Chachamim hold that you don't have to do research. But if our Mishnah is talking about where there's a problem, someone said that there's a problem with this woman, and now the Chachamim hold that you don't have to do research. Why shouldn't you have to research something where people said there's a problem with? Manda masniha le masniha. The Gemara answers, obviously, these are contradictory statements in the name of Rav. The one that taught this can't have taught that. Those that say this a little different. That our Mishnah is talking about, that our Mishnah is only the opinion of Reb Meir, but the Chacham argue, they say you don't have to do any research. Rav Chama bar Guria in the name of Rav says that even according to the Chachamim, if there is a problem, Kara Elavir means that someone protested something about the lineage, then you do have to do some research, and that would be that the Chacham would agree to this if there was a problem. It's only if there's no problem where Reb Meir says that you have to research, and the Chachamim hold that. You don't have to research from the Mizbeach up. My time, what's the reason he loved it? If they didn't already examine him, they never would have put him to work on the Mizbeach, to work on the altar. You don't have to check from the platform where the Levium would sing. My time, what's the reason? Over there would only be Kayanim of Yichus and Levium of Yichus. You don't have to examine if anyone sat on the Sanhedrin. My time, what's the reason? The Tani Rabbi Yosef taught Shem Shebezdin Menukim B'Tzedek, just like the Bezdin is perfectly righteous. Kach Menukim Mikol Mum, it's also perfect from any blemish. And over here, we're assuming that blemish means from any blemish in lineage. Amar Merema Mikra. Merema says, where's the pasuk that teaches this? It says, Kulach Yafa Rayasi Mumein Bach. All of you is perfectly Rayasi, my beloved, and there's no blemish in you.
Just because we already checked to see if their lineages, like if
Yeah,
applied to be
because they're already accepted it besides the application, already accepted. So then there's no blemish. Maybe it just means that they don't have a defect on the body. How do you know it means defect from lineage? It says that you will sit there with they will sit with you. Moses talking about the 70 elders, the 70 Canaan. Imach b'daimelach. They have to be similar to you. It says v'dilm mishum shchina. Maybe that's because of the shchina that was there in that generation, or the generation of Moshe, that the shchina was there. But in a regular generation, in irregular times, it doesn't mean that they're perfect in lineage, just like Moshe. Going back to the time of Yisrael, when it says you take other judges, you take the helpers to help in the judgment. So that means that they're going to help you, and they have to be similar to you. When you take those judges, that means similar in lineage, that they have perfect lineage. Just like Moshe's lineage was good, even though it wasn't right. His uncle, his father married his aunt, which would be problematic today, but before the Torah, that was fine. Okay. Anyone that the father was from a city official. What do you mean? These city officials or these judges are not possible for a minnow. We have a brisa that says it's a minnow, probably a mishnah. It says akol ksherim ladon dini mamanis, akol ksherim ladon dini nefashis. Anyone can be a judge, monetary cases, but not capital punishment. We asked, what do you mean when you say anyone? That it could even be a mamzer. So what are you telling me, that you don't have to examine if the person was a judge? Could be a mamzer, could be the worst lineage. Well, we're talking about in Yerushalayim. Tani Reb Shimon bar Zera, Shmaya bar Zera, the Kiddushin Daf Levi, Yerushalayim, and also was taught by Reb Shimon bar Zera in the tractate Kiddushin, what was found in the house of Levi. He had his own brises, like Reb Chi and Rabbi Shia had brises. So Levi also had brises, and over there they had a tractate Kiddushin. Over there it says that it was talking about the judges of Yerushalayim, that those judges were all perfect lineage. If it's the person was a gabei tzedakah, you don't have to examine anymore. You can just marry them without investigating. My time, what's the reason? Because they're always fighting with people. Gabei tzedakah is always coming around asking for money. Everyone's always yelling at them. So if there was a problem, we would know that there's a problem, because they would yell everything possible that there is to yell. So Damar Mar, because the master said, Mashkan ala tzedakah. You can even take like collaterals if someone is supposed to give tzedakah and he doesn't give it. Even Erev Shabbos, which is really going to cause a fight. The Misa De'ika, and if there was any problem in the person's lineage, Islay Kala, there would have been a rumor about, and we would hear about it. Yeah. In Chaim Grada's book, My Mother's Shabbos Days, or something. Something like that. My Mother's Shabbos Days. He describes the city of Vilna. He's talking about on Erev Shabbos. The beggars were asking people. They were throwing insults at people that don't give them and cursing them, and you have to give tzedakah. And it was hard to walk down the streets, but you'd get like a mouthful. Okay. Ishbezichne de Ravada Barava Girahava. The host of Ravada Barava was a convert. Have a Kaminsi E over Rav Bibi. This host and Rav Bibi probably, were arguing. Mara Mana Vidna Surusa Damasa. I'm going to be the city governor, something, mayor, I don't know, official. Mara Marana Vidna Surusa Damasa. I'm going to be the city official. Old politics. The Rav Bibi said it, and the host of Ravada Barava, we don't know his name. He was a convert. Well, Asal Kami de Rav Yosef, they come to Rav Yosef. Amalahu, yeah, this is one way to find out someone's lineage, is you have him run for mayor or for governor. Every possible thing that he ever did or anything in the family all comes up, right? That's the so also coming to Rabbi Yosef Amalahu Tanina. We have 1 second. We have a Mishnah or a Brisa. It says, "Saim tasim alach melech mikerav achecha." You place on your king, on yourself a king from amongst your brothers. Kol mesimis, any position. Shata mesim that you place, has to be from one of your brothers. A convert cannot be a king, and a convert can't be a city official. Amalei Ravada Barava says, 1 second. I feel imam Yisrael. But let's say his father was a convert. The mother was a regular Jewish person. Amarle, he said to him, imam Yisrael mikerav achecha krin. No, that's already a brother. The mother's not a convert. Only the father's a convert, and the child, it looked like he was a convert when we started the story. But it turns out, now we're learning more details, he wasn't really a convert. It was his father that was a convert, and he wants to be the governor of the city, and they said, it's no problem. Hilkach Rabivi, the Gavar Rabu, Lion Mil Deshmai, Rabivi, he is a great person. He should be involved with the spiritual part of it, which is the tzedakah and other things. You know, who's going to be the gabbai and who's going to get like a gabbai type of thing. Another one will be in charge of the other parts of the city. Okay. Amar Abaya says, Hilkachman, the Mishri Tzurva Mirabanan Bishbazichne Lashrik Ravada Barava, the Adam Lamahaptle Bishusei. If you want to have a yeshiva guy or a rabbi in your house, you should choose someone like Ravada Barava that's able to protect the host. Because in court, Ravada Barava won for the host. He made the host into a governor. Reb Zera Metapelbo. Reb Zera would help the converts get important positions in the community. Rabba Baravua Metapelbo. Rabba Baravua would also help them become important positions. Marava in the Eretz Yisrael was different. They won't even allow him to check the measurements. Even an official that just checks to make sure that the measurements are correct. In Ardai, they wouldn't even let him be in charge of checking to make sure no one takes water on the wrong day. That was they would share cisterns. They would take water. This is your day. This is your day. But they wouldn't allow a convert to be in charge of that. That's in Eretz Yisrael. In Bavel, they would. They would make him even a city official. Okay. Rabbi Yossi, Omer, Af Mishahaya. Rabbi Yossi says even someone that would sign on that registry. Oh, it's interesting because Rabbi Yossi is the one that says the registry in Tzipori. Rabbi Yossi was the Rav of Tzipori. He was the Rav of Tzipori, and his son also, Rabbi Shmuel Rabbi Yossi, was also the Rav in Tzipori. So he's saying that registry was very careful to make sure that everyone in there was at good lineage. My time, Daikum Machasmi. They would examine them before they would allow them to sign. Reb Chanina ben Antigonus says that the soldiers were also at perfect lineage. We're talking about the soldiers of the house of David. Rabbi Yosef Mikra. Rabbi Yosef says, where do you get this from? This Yachsham B'tzva Milchama. I guess it's using the word yichus in that pasuk. How do they translate that verse? The genealogy of the army. That means they would examine to make sure that everything was perfect. Gemara says, 1 second. I'm sorry, but 1 second before that. The time am I? What's the reason? Number of Yudam Rav, we want to have, when they're going to battle, they should have the merits of their ancestors to help them in the battle. If they have good lineage, then they have the merit of the ancestors. V'ika tzelek amayni. Is that how it's pronounced? Tzelek? Yeah, there was one of the soldiers was from Amen. That's not good lineage. Amen was a problem. They weren't allowed to marry into the community. My lab dasimi Amen. It came from Amen. It says Loi the Yosef Amen. He was called Ha'amayni because he lived in Amen, not because he was a descendant of Amen. V'ika Uriah Achiti. What about Uriah Achiti? He comes from Ches, right? The Chiti. My love dasimi Ches. It says like the Yosef Ches. He settled in Ches. It wasn't really a Chiti. V'ika Itai Hagiti. But what about Itai? He came from Gas. Gas is the Philistines. The Chiti Machinamid Yosef Gas. Do you want to say that he would really that he was only settled in Gas, but he wasn't really from Gas? It was a problem with something that was an Avodah Zarah. Now, an Avodah Zarah, an idol, if a Jew breaks the idol, so then it's still prohibited to have any benefit from. But if the non-Jew breaks the idol, if the non-Jew gets rid of it, then it's considered gotten rid of, and it's not considered an idol anymore. So it says that Itai Agiti had destroyed an idol, and that could only work if he's a non-Jew. That means he obviously comes from Gas. He comes from says that David HaMelech had 400 children that were all children of Yifas Tayar, of the women the beautiful women that you found in battle that you were allowed to live with, and you gave them this option of converting or whatever. But all of these children had haircuts like non-Jews. They had bloirus, which sounds like ponytails, and that's like a non-Jewish style. And they were all sitting in these because it's a son of the king. They're sitting in these carriages of gold, and they would go at the front of the soldiers. And these were the strong people of Beis David. You see, they don't have good lineage. The mothers weren't even converts yet. They were. It says the Azli lebeusei Alma. They weren't really in the army. They were just going to scare everyone. They weren't really part of the army. Okay.
True.
Well, guess so. Do they have people in the army that just go to scare? Should we just stop over here? Or should we go further? Let's go a little further. Is that okay? We'll do a half just to get started, so we're not too behind. You need to go. Okay. We're today's stuff is supposed to be Ayin Zion, so I'd like to get started just so we don't. Bas Chalol Zachar. Is that okay? Is
Yeah.
today's stuff Ayin
I
Zion?
think we should, otherwise we'll have to finish Thursday night.
Right. So Bas Chalol Zachar Sulamin Akuna. A daughter of a male Chalol. That means that his mother was probably a divorcee, married to a Kohen. They have the son that's a Chalal. His son is Suleiman. I'm sorry, not his son. His daughter cannot marry a Kohen. Suleiman Yisrael Shanasa Chalala. If a non-Kohen marries that girl, right, the Chalala, then it's not a problem because he's not a Kohen anyway. Chalal is only a Kohen that's been demoted, which is a problem, which can't marry a Kohen. But here it's a Yisrael that, sorry?
A divorcee?
Yeah, if a Kohen marries a divorcee, the child is a Chalal. But if a Yisrael marries that Chalala, let's say, that's a girl, then it sort of like purifies the descendants, and they're just regular Yisraelim, not even considered Chalalim. It's only if a Kohen, it's only if it's a girl, she can't marry a Kohen. Okay, now, if the Halal son,
They're no longer.
but let's say, right, but let's say you have a line like this. Let's say you have a Kohen marries a divorcee, all right? They have a son. That son is a Halal. That son has a son. He's a Halal. That son has a son. He's a Halal. That son has a son. That goes on forever, but it's only going to be relevant when there's a daughter. But then when that daughter marries a Yisrael, then it's not relevant anymore. But as it can go 100 generations of son, the daughter from that's not gonna be able to marry a Kohen. But if that daughter marries Yisrael, then it's cleansed. There's no issue.
But if they have a son or daughter, they're both halal.
Yeah, if they have a son or a daughter, they're both halal. The son is a halal, which is a problem because his children are also going to be a halal. But what's relevant for him, he's allowed to marry.
For a daughter, it doesn't carry over to
Right. The daughter doesn't carry over, but she can't marry a Kohen. Chalal shenasa bas Yisrael. If a chalal marries a Jewish girl, bitib silakuna. Now the problem with that is that we just said that at the beginning. That was the first case. A bas chalal zachar, sulam minakuna. You just said it again. You just added in that it was Yisrael that he married. All right. The daughter is puzzled to marry a Kohen. Rabbi Yehuda Imer bas ger zachar bas chalal zachar. Rabbi Yehuda's view is that just like a Kohen can't marry a halala, he also can't marry the daughter of a convert. That's Rabbi Yehuda's view. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov Aimer Yisrael shenasa geiros. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says that a Jewish person can marry a convert, and bitik sheilakuna, the daughter can marry a Kohen. And the same thing, the opposite. Ger shenasa bas Yisrael, if the convert was the man that marries a Jewish girl, bitik sheilakuna, the daughter can marry a Kohen. So Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov says all of that's not true. It's only the convert woman that can't marry the Kohen. Aval ger shenasa geiros. However, Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov holds that if a convert marries another convert, bitei psul kahuna, the child is puzzled for marrying a Kohen. Echad ger v'echad avadim meshachrarim afilu ad yadaris. Actually, imam Yisrael, until there's one Jewish mother there, then one side needs to be Jewish. Rabbi Yossi says, Rabbi Yossi is the more lenient in that. He says even a convert that marries another convert, the child can marry a Kohen. Ma'ili olam, the Gemara says, we go back to Baschal Zachar Psulim and Akula olam, that it goes on forever. What does it mean forever? I could have thought that halal only lasts for 3 generations, just like the mitzvah just like over there, it's 3 generations. So too over here, it's 3 generations. Mashmalah, and it comes to tell us that it's not 3 generations; it goes forever. Son will always be a halal. Yisrael shenasa halala. If the Yisrael marries a girl that was from that union and is a halala, so we say that the child is kshera. The daughter is kosher to marry a Kohen. We know immediately. Where do we know this from? Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says this. Mishum Reb Shimon, in the name of Reb Shimon. On the side it says it's supposed to be Rabbi Shmuel. Okay, we had the daf before. We had Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shmuel, right? Where do we have Rabbi Yochanan in the name of Rabbi Shmuel? I seem to remember that. Maybe not. Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was on Thursday, Rabbi.
Oh yeah.
And it was the same source, the Nesora Hashas.
I'm finding it. Okay, whatever. Nemer Khan, so he says Nemer Khan v'lo yichalel zarei ba'amav Nemer la'alon le'yitame bal ba'amav. It says that you should not profane his offspring. And it also says that he shouldn't become impure. Just like when it comes to impurity, it's only the men kayanim that can't become impure. Also, it's only the men kayanim that create the child to be a halal, not a woman that it doesn't pass on from the woman. If it doesn't pass on from the woman, then if a Kohen Gadol marries a widow, which is a prohibition. If you want to say that the women are permissible, then why don't you to marry a Kohen? Then why don't you say that the daughter of the Kohen Gadol? Now, there's a verse by the Kohen Gadol that says that she becomes, if the Kohen Gadol marries a widow, she becomes a halala, and so too the daughter is also a halala. If you want to say that it's only the men and not the women, so why isn't she permissible? It says miksiv benoi zariksiv. It says that the descendants are halalim. So it's not just the women. Ksiv leichal zari bama means the descendants. So it says, okay, so bas benoi tishtri. So what about the granddaughter? She should be permissible. The son's daughter, it says leichal zari makis zari loy. So we compare now. We compare the granddaughter to the son, to her father. Mahu bite psula. Just like Zar would mean the Kohen Gadol. Just like his daughter is pasul, af benai, also the son bite psula. Also his son, also his daughter is going to be pasul. So the Kohen Gadol's daughter is pasul, and the Kohen Gadol's son's daughter is pasul. Gemara asks, so bas bite titzar. If that's what you're going to say, so maybe the daughter's daughter should be pasul. It says imken gzer shava ma'hanile, but we had a gzer shava that says that it's only by the women, that it's only by the men and not by the women. So if you're going to say daughter's daughter is also pasul, that's what we're not going to say. It's only the daughter and the son's daughter that's going to be pasul. Okay, let's see a drop further. Chol shenasa bas Yisrael bita psula. A chalal that marries a bas Yisrael, that means a Kohen that's been demoted because his mother was a divorcee. So his daughter is going to be, he's a Kohen that's a chalal. His daughter is pasul for marrying a Kohen. When it says Atanile Reishi, already said this in the beginning. That was the first case. You said that the daughter is prohibited. Gemara says, I did Tani Reisha, since you also said that Yisrael Shanas Chalala, that if a Jewish person marries a Chalala, we said that's kosher. So Tananami say for Chal Shanas Bas Yisrael, we're not adding anything, we're just trying to keep it matching what we just said. Okay. Masnisan like Reb Destoy ben Yehuda, our Mishnah doesn't fit with Reb Destoy ben Yehuda because Reb Destoy ben Yehuda held differently. The Tanya was taught in the Bryce, Reb Destoy ben Yehuda, Aimer, Shem Shevnei Yisrael Mikvatar Lachalalis, just like the Jewish people, a regular Jew purifies the halala, because if a Yisrael marries a halala, then the children, the offspring, are not halalim. So too, a Jewish girl purifies her husband's offspring, that it doesn't continue forever. My time with Reb Deis Reb Yehuda, what's the reason for Reb Deis Reb Yehuda? How does that work? No, as a halal would only continue forever if a Kohen married another Kohenes. What's the reason for Reb Deis Reb Yehuda? That you shouldn't profane the descendants. It's only if it's the same descendants, not if it's two different tribes, not if it's from Yisrael. That already. Okay, let's leave it here. We're up to Tanur Rabbanan. Okay, have a good day, everyone.
Thank you very much, Rabbi.
Thank you.